That guy was such a douchebag. God almighty.
Okay, is your mic open?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You want to give me a little goose here? Because I'm not going to stay that close to the mic through the whole thing. So I don't know when I come in here, my voice suddenly starts to mute. A mute? Okay, there's that. A little hot?
That's okay.
We can live with that?
I can live with that.
Can. All right.
Let me check mine because then I'll just hello. Then you can just trim that off. Let me belch to make sure. No, I won't do that. So you want to start? Is this it?
Yeah. Before we do, remember that what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the famous Digger Daroo that you did.
Okay.
And then we're going to go right to this. We're going to go about 45 minutes, 50 max.
Well, it's 20 after right now.
And I can read that. Okay. So let's wait till it gets to a minute and we'll start. Well, here we go with our Knollapalooza, and this is our kickoff show at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And as I threatened to have on the show, this is a legendary Harry Spenser.
Where did you get that name? Where did that come from?
Which one?
I can't pronounce it. Palooza. Joe Palooza.
It just came off the top of my head.
Was there a Joe Palooza? Was there a movie
Joe
called?
Palooza, that was a comic strip.
Yep,
Yeah.
Joe Palooza. Okay.
All right, already we're going into association here. But we're here with Harry Spenser, who's kicking off this 13-hour marathon.
4th of July weekend.
Funny that we should choose that one.
Okay.
And we've been through this before, but Harry, started this thing, and we were co-hosts for a long, long time. And now he is a somewhat regular guest, if not frequent, but still regular. And
I've been taking Uncle Sam cereal, and it's helped in that regard.
It clears your mind, too?
Regular. Oh, you're talking about time.
Oh, yes, I am.
Okay, sorry. Uncle Sam, I highly recommend it. I warn people, do not eat 2 bowls of it.
Before you go to bed?
Yes.
Who did that, Butch or you?
I did, and a friend of mine who lives down in Delray Beach did, and he said he saw stuff from the 3rd grade.
It's a wonderful thing.
I know.
It's the best cereal on the market.
Yes. Let me tell you about that.
Okay.
There's a, as you know, cash and carry chain of grocery stores was bought by Hannaford out of New York, I think. New England, somewhere around there. And, of course, they changed the name of the stores to Sweet Bay. Well, after their marketing study, they thought that they want to do some things like the Publix, which is a locally owned Florida chain, did, and put a green health food type section in there, which they have done. They took $1.99 box of Uncle Sam cereal, moved it over to the natural, and it's $3.99.
Yeah, I know. Take the pipe.
Same. Yeah.
Take the pipe.
Yeah.
I also want to tell you real quick now, too, without getting into minutiae with people. Well, even if they don't understand, they still got to appreciate it. Mr. LaMarche.
Yes.
Just reordered again from him.
His great spices.
It
Instant
is
Gourmet.
Instant Gourmet Spice.
Yes.
.com. And he wants to sell. He said he's had enough. But I got a last order. I forgot something. He sent it to me free. An item.
I mean, you can't. And those items are available in several stores.
And he told me the horror story about basically extortion from.
Yep.
And I said, honestly, I said, Mr. LaMarche, I can't get the stuff in East Pasco County. I said, that's why I'm coming to you. But I said, I understand why you can't. And but that was a good find. And I told him, I said, look, I want to remind you that I am Harry Spenser's associate. And he had come in one Christmas, just before Christmas, with a whole bunch of your samplers. And I'll tell you right now, that's probably already been paid off with just what we've been doing. It's great stuff, no preservatives.
I went and picked up cases and cases of that stuff. He packed them in those little boxes, and they did a nice job. You can, for those who are in the right areas, the super targets sell his spices.
That's how he got them in there. But, you can go to the website. It gets it done.
Yep.
And that's how I do it.
It's probably a little less expensive from the website, I think. I don't know.
No, the deal is always with the delivery. But the thing is, if you can't get it, with the shipping UPS, the thing is, if you can't get it, it's still worth it. And there's no artificial preservatives.
Nothing, it's all natural.
It's great stuff, and we love it.
For hardcore meat eaters like me, the wake of steak stuff was absolutely, you just take a T-bone or something, rub that on there. Excellent. Put that on the grill. I don't eat a lot. A lot of people think I talk about eating pork all the time. Actually, I had sauerkraut and ribs and mashed potatoes and applesauce last night for the first time in a long time.
What, was it German night at the house?
No, that's how we do it. We take a baking dish, lay out the sauerkraut, take the ribs and put the instant gourmet if you want to on top, and then put that in an oven at about 400 degrees for about an hour and a half. And I like mashed potatoes every now and then, so that for whatever reason the applesauce is altogether nice cold. Put it in the chiltner. It's a nice.
Pork always goes with applesauce.
Does it?
That's usually
It's a good mix of everything, and it was good eating.
Now we're going to hear this on July 5th. You understand?
The meat pulled right off the bones.
Yesterday, I'm actually going to eat pork ribs for the first time in like 23 years or something.
If they're cooked, they're great. It's the other white meat, buddy.
It's the other white meat. That's what I know. I got.
Who said who's your guy you interviewed? The old guy out west at the agriculture. Larry Brownfield says that's not white meat. Don't let anybody fool you. So
Larry's a beef guy.
Yep. But he goes, there's.
Also, unfortunately, I had to tell you this, but Derry, who is a straight shooter and does a great show, as you remember, it was very specific about farm issues, land issues, but because he went after Monsanto 2 shows in a row, he got bounced off all the AM stations on Learfield. I mean,
I tell you, it's getting back to that Frank video that you sent me. That's what he's talking about. What are we theocracy? He referred to it, that we're heading our country toward.
But even the theocracy, I mean, it's not even like a
fascist theocracy is what.
But it isn't even Christianity. It's like some weird thing that guys like Hagee and Robertson all cooked up. But I mean, he's right.
But I know where he's going with that. I understand.
And what Harry's referring to is that I don't know if somebody sent. I don't even know how I came on.
Well, if you do a YouTube or do a search on Google or go to YouTube.com and do just a simple search on Frank Zappa, who the formerly now a room temperature musician, guitar player, there was an interesting interview on Crossfire. And I'll tell you what, they regretted bringing him on there.
Oh no, he just chewed up that one. What was his name? Lofton or something like that.
Yeah, from the Washington Post. And
John.
It was he just ripped him up.
I don't know if it was Lofton. It was something like that.
I think it was. Okay. Yeah.
It was horrible. And the way that these guys extrapolate, well, if you liked it, then you are into pedophilia. You know what I mean? It's like
he never said any of that. And,
I was looking at him like, what are you talking about?
And they were talking about somebody else's lyrics, and he said, you guys are talking about mine. They're not mine,
Right. And
All
right, listen, I want to, well, I'll tell you what, maybe I talk a little bit about Zappa, but I got to tell you also, Harry, that there's been a number of people who have been doing some work on rock and roll in the 60s and 70s, and one guy by the name of Dave McGowan has been doing work on the Laurel Canyon people and talking about how many of the recording artists had connections by their own blood to the military intelligence complex. Zappa's folks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
His dad worked at Aberdeen or near there in Maryland.
Aberdeen, All right.
Oh, yeah.
Also, and McGowan showed a photo of none other than Jim Morrison with his dad on the conning deck of the Essex, which was involved in the fake Gulf of Tonkin.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I don't know if that shot was on the Essex, but his father was on the Essex.
This is the same Jim Morrison who went to St. Petersburg Junior College from Clearwater, Florida.
What was he doing down here?
He was incorrigible, so he stayed with his grandparents for quite some time. But
he was exiled down to Florida.
Yep.
And he went to the Almost All Right College.
That's it.
Which I think you.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Right.
Yep. Jim Morrison, but his claim to fame went to Clearwater High School, and of course the rest is history. This is the end.
That's my friend. Yeah.
Yeah. Frank's dad was actually a scientist. And but traveled around.
And I think Zappa's wife, or there was somebody else involved in this too. It's either his father, it's either his mother, or it's his wife that she had some kind of people. And I'm separated from the information now. Yeah. But his wife might have come from that too.
Yeah, and that might be how he met her. But I don't think
intelligence.
But personally, but. Frank had a pretty sarcastic view of the military and a lot of the stuff, and he claimed that the reason why he was sick so much when he was a kid because he was living around all these chemical dumps and everything. So for a short period of time, he actually moved to Florida. Then they moved back to Maryland, and then actually Frank was pretty sickly as a kid, and then they ended up moving out to California around Edwards Air Force Base and places like that. But interestingly enough, his foray into music was a result of just listening to different. He liked it all. He liked classical music.
He spoke on that. Oh, he spoke on one of the YouTube things. Oh, with David Letterman, about he had written some. I don't want to say operas, but.
Oh, he's composed a lot of interesting.
So Letterman didn't know what to do with him, but that was okay.
I think the first time he was ever on TV was on the Steve Allen show, and he played a bicycle.
Oh, that must have been really, really early.
It was. He had a bicycle, and he had tuned the spokes and all this stuff, and actually was composing music with it, and people were stunned, and Steve was, I remember seeing the video, Steve was very impressed, not as sarcastic, and we got this young guy by the name of Frank Zappa, and he comes out and plays the bicycle.
Well, Steve's a musician, so he had to appreciate what was going on.
Yeah, he just said, you could watch him, he was sitting, and it was some classical piece of music, and he had every aspect, including the bell, on the whole thing. He was tapping all these areas and tuned the spokes, but got it all going and working.
The only problem with Frank is that you can't get your carbohydrates from cigarettes and your protein from coffee.
Well, you know what he said on an interview, his favorite vegetable was tobacco.
Yeah, exactly.
so that tells you that. At any rate.
All right, let's switch to something else, because you have at least one leg very much into operating radio, ham radio. We call them hammies.
Amateur radio.
All right, we call them hammies, and so somebody said, "What does Harry put on the dog when he gets on?" No, I said, "No, it's not that kind of hammy." You just had your marathon, did you know?
Field day, 2008.
All right, and that was a 48-hour deal.
24-hour deal.
Okay,
Seems like 48. Yeah.
And you did it where I saw you last.
That's correct. That's
downtown?
at the Dade City Emergency Operations Center.
All right, now it was 2 years ago that I went down and I covered that, didn't I?
That's correct.
And what did we get out of that? The worth of. You remember when I went? I didn't know where the place was. I went to the cops, and they couldn't open up the door because they had no power.
Yep.
And what she was trying to tell me when she finally came out, behind locked doors, the officer on duty said, "Oh, well, it's right over there," and she didn't want to tell me that their communications were down.
Yeah, everything was down. Lightning had struck the now the solution for Dade City, which I agree, which I like, is they took the tower down. So the tower is gone. So they
can't hit
there anymore. That was their solution, which it worked. But yeah, lightning struck the tower and blew the phone system totally off whack, including over in the building we were at. And yet, interestingly enough, all the radio gear. The Tampa Tribune covered, somebody from the Trib showed up on Saturday and then mentioned the fact that I had bragged about the fact that everything 2 years ago when lightning struck.
I wasn't bragging, it was true.
Yeah, well, they were, I wasn't offended by the comment.
Where did they find that out from?
I told them the story. They were standing outside during a thunderstorm. Okay. I said, here, lightning struck here.
That's true, yeah.
And everything blew to hell, and yet we were still running.
And yet the cop cars with headquarters had no communication.
Had no communication.
So the bad guys wanted to go out and do anything they wanted to.
That's it.
They could have.
That's it.
Yes.
That's it.
Now, one thing I want to bring out about this, because it's important, especially to us, because of the time of the year that it is down here, and also because a lot of people, with Patriots, are like, shortwave and all this other stuff. Would you say that ham radio is probably the most resilient when things get weird?
Absolutely. And one of the things that makes it resilient is the fact that most amateur radio operators have something stashed away. They're kind of like people with guns and ammo and whatnot. They have battery backup. They have alternative power. They have an additional radio. They have an antenna in a bag. They have something. And that's one of the things we do at Field Day, is set some of that stuff up. One of the antennas, in fact, we had a special station called a GOTA, G-O-T-A, or Get on the Air. And that's to give an opportunity to people who have never experienced being on the air, or people haven't been on the air in a long time. And the antenna was made out of a slinky, 2 slinkies, and it was stretched between 2 poles. And the antenna probably was 15 feet off the ground, but yet a couple of the people who had never experienced playing with radio were making contacts all the way up and down the east coast of the United States with less than 100 watts of power.
What was interesting, too, is the Laker came down, too, if you remember.
Yep.
And what's that gentleman who sits at the board whose photo they took?
Merrill. Yep.
Well, I took it was almost the same photo. Yep. Remember, I took one of him?
Yep.
I looked at him going, did they take mine?
There is
so
again.
It was Masala.
Merrill Brown, yep.
So it was fun. So it was the same old thing. Now, but also, with yourself, do you have, would you call it a chain, from South Florida to the Georgia border? Or pretty close?
Easily, yeah. Easily.
Now, you couldn't man the ham radio in 2004 because you and I were here when it got weird with Charlie and Floyd.
Right.
But your wife went up to Lacucci, I think, and
That's
manned
correct.
And, you know, I mean, that's when it really showed its stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And even though we weren't involved with it, and you were removed from that, I mean, everybody was keeping in touch during that time. And
actually, it showed its stuff Katrina in New Orleans because they had, and Andrew back years ago in South Florida, because, you know, when you got a Category 4 or 5 hurricane blowing through and it's taken down all the towers, the infrastructure, power lines, there's no electricity, there's no cell towers, stuff that people become reliant upon is suddenly gone. And I think it's a hoot that, and I don't mean that in a negative sense, but I see people come up with all these emergency plans. We're going to do this. The infrastructure, we're going to rely on the internet. They're going to. So none of that stuff's going to work. It hasn't worked yet. It's not going to work.
if it gets that bad, it won't be there. Is that
That's right? It's not going to be there. Hurricane Charlie came in near Port Charlotte and Punta Gorda at that same year and totally wiped out the infrastructure in those counties down there. And amateur radio operators who normally, you know, operate 2-meter FM through repeaters and things like that, reconfigured those repeaters on police and sheriff operating frequencies and set up makeshift operations in parking lots because the law enforcement radios in the cars worked, but the repeaters were blown away that they normally use. So here you had a situation where we said, okay, what frequency does this need to operate on? And we'll set it up and you can operate it and make it work. So they basically restored the county's emergency communication system for them.
You and I were together in a golf cart, and I forget if you told me at that time or somebody told us. I don't remember how that went. And I don't know if it was a report you got from your wife who had, you know, been in contact with you, that the last thing they knew, and what was it, Charlie or Floyd, that was supposed to come right over 41?
Charlie.
All right. And the last thing we heard was that the center was going to come over 41. And then, however that worked, a couple of minutes later, Gordy came by and said,
This thing has changed, yep.
Because you and I both looked at each other and said, oh, this is going to be nasty.
Yep.
So was the first report, though, was that something, you know, not that it was erroneous at all, it wasn't, but how do we get that first information?
That first information, that came from the first information that was coming at 41 came from ham radio operators at the Emergency Operations Center in Newport Richey. And I remember calling my wife. In fact, I can remember telling her what I said. I said, if this comes up, I said, we're going to lose everything we own.
That's right. I remember you said, yeah.
You know, and she said, well, you know,
what are you going to do?
That's the way it goes, you know.
You can't spread yourself over the top of the roof and hold it down.
But, you know, fortunate for us and unfortunate for others, it made a sudden turn. My friend down in Jimmy Damas,
yep.
down in who lives in Punta Gorda, Port Charlotte, says that was steered at MacDill Air Force Base.
Okay, he believes it was harped or...
He was harped. He said they turned it to protect everything at the Central Command. They brought it in quick, you know.
Actually, I don't think they would have had much of a problem. I think we're really taking it in the snot.
Yeah, but I'll tell you something. I'll tell you right now. With the hurricane damage in New Orleans and that area, which was primarily more levee related, and I want to follow that up with the Mississippi River, by the way. The reality is that if a hurricane made landfall in the mouth of Tampa Bay, you could not compare the damage in Pinellas County, which is the most densely populated county in the state of Florida. They still wouldn't have recovered.
And that's because with the counterclockwise,
it
would have taken all the water and shoved it
20-foot storm surge easy because of the way the basin of the Tampa Bay is configured, and the population in Pinellas County would be that would be a disaster.
When we get hit from the east side, it can be bad, but it can never be worse than we get hit from the Gulf.
Now, for whatever reason, that area and Jacksonville are the least likely to get hit statistically. And
Tampa and Jacksonville dodge the most bullets.
And it's a 1 in 25 chance to get hit from a storm. North or south, they make entries. They tend to miss that area. I don't know if it has something to do with the geographics. Jacksonville, actually, if you look at the map, is kind of in as you go up the coast. So stuff that's hugging the coast tends to go right by. But getting back to Jimmy Damas's prediction about there are lots of storm tracks that have, and not just here, but all over the world. That's not unusual because the steering currents, that a storm that you think is going sudden, all of a sudden does that. And so you have to think of a hurricane. The best analogy I've heard is a beach ball. And if you've ever kicked a beach ball on a windy day, it kind of bobbles, and it doesn't take a lot to move it.
Well, people equate hurricanes with having massive, massive power that can't be overcome by any other force. And yet we've always heard that fronts can come in and shear. All you got to do is do something.
That's right.
Right. So, I mean, they aren't invincible when it comes to other forces. And that's what's probably kept us pretty safe here.
It's just the predictability, and I think the National Weather Service over the years is, I mean, it's obvious that they've done a better and better and better job of predicting landfall. And, but, they get surprised too, because, things change suddenly, and then, as in the case of Charlie, I mean, that thing made a hard turn. Now, what's really an interesting fact, then we'll move on to other things, is that Charlie's turn was detected by television station radar before the government radar systems picked up on it. WFLA in Tampa reported that this thing was jogging toward Port Charlotte, and a couple of friends of mine who were amateur radio operators that lived down there, Jack Mahal, to be specific, and his friend, he grabbed him.
Iowa.
Yeah. Grabbed and said, you need to get out of here. And the other guy said, well, it's going straight up toward Tampa. And he said, I'm watching Channel 8 in Tampa, and they're showing this thing turning toward Port Charlotte where they lived.
Yeah.
And, of course, the rest is history. That thing came right in.
Oh, boy, John Winter, too.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I miss him.
That's been a year. Believe it or not, doesn't seem like it, yeah.
Would you say to all the, I don't even call them patriots anymore because they make me sick, but for people who get it, would you say that it's a good idea, not necessarily to get involved with ham radio, but, I mean, it would not be a bad idea to, be friendly with those who are
understand it. There's lots of things, you can always, the best way to get interested in amateur radio is to get interested in shortwave radio. And there's lots of materials out there, books at Walden Books. Are they still in business? Or
I have no idea. Last time you and I were there.
Yeah, your local bookstore. There's a great book called Passport to the World that's published every year. It's like a TV guide. And radio, equipment is not really that expensive. Antennas can be fashioned out of wire. You can listen, but when a lot of emergency nets, do a search on the web for HF emergency nets and ham radio, or go to arrl.org. There's another good place to start, and there's a lot of information out there.
You bring up a good point. Do you have a website now that you're still keeping active with regard to ham radio that also can kick other people to other links?
Yeah, and that would be EPARS Online. EPARS would be EPARS Online, as in one word, .org.
Okay. What's cheaper? Well, you said shortwave. I mean, I have a radio that's shortwave.
Yeah.
And I've tried to pick up hammy sometimes from you. I was in a bad position, back in the old days in the Hernando-Pasco County line. I couldn't do much. But shortwave can pick up ham radio.
Well, most ham radio is in the shortwave band.
Is in that band?
Yep,
okay.
Yep.
So you got a shortwave, if you know where somebody's in your area, by the way. And I want to ask you just as a point of minutia, I had told you that there was somebody who looked like he was a hammy just a little bit north of the junction of St. Joe Road and what would become Lake Iola Road.
That's possible.
Where you had the old depot and something happening on the northwest corner.
Okay.
You never found out who that was, did you?
No.
I'm still wondering who that is, because once when I go up there, it's like, because you can tell by the antenna.
Yeah, there's a guy who lives on Lake Iola Road that is a ham. Maybe it's the same guy.
All right. Is Bear still doing it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So anyway, I mean, it's a value to take a look at, especially when things go wrong, because we down here are used to it because.
Well, and one of the things I take back to shortwave is that you also, if you become an avid shortwave listener, there's a lot of things going on that you don't hear. And I'm not talking about listening to quote the Patriot/Power Hour stations and all those, but listen to other stuff. Listen to English language broadcasts from other countries, especially listen to their news broadcasts, and sometimes you get a different opinion of what people think.
Especially from Russia and Cuba.
Oh, yeah. But interestingly enough, during the first Gulf War, I can't remember who the heck we were listening to, but maybe it was an Egyptian station, but they knew that the first attack was about to begin before anybody over here knew it, because some word had spread that the surface-to-air missile sites in Iraq were being lit up for no apparent reason, and there was nobody there. It was AWACS basically flying over and setting false targets.
Yeah.
And they said they knew by the false information that was getting set up that was a standard procedure, that within a few hours an attack was about to come. And sure enough, I heard this while I was at work listening to shortwave, and at 7 o'clock or so, 6:30 that night on TV, they had started the attack.
That was in 91?
Yep.
Let me just ask you this, not to divulge where you work, but it was not NASA, but wasn't it private corporations who put up the birds?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's not a NASA thing. Whatever.
No. NASA is purely for space exploration and science.
Well, it looks like they're getting all wet again now, with Mars being a hot topic.
Well, I'm glad to see that. If their assumption is right, then that's a chunk of ice that melted. You know, they dig around, it's there, and a few minutes later it disappears after a couple in the sun. You know, so. But when you have water, you know, there's a good possibility that
there's other things hanging around.
And maybe
take me to your leader.
Yeah. So.
All right. Let's see. Well, I'm going to ask you your prognostication, because you've been pretty good last couple of years, and that is activity for us. Let's just say for us down here in Florida.
Like what kind of activity?
Greater, lesser.
Hurricane?
Yeah.
Normal. I don't expect anything unusual.
Okay.
You know, even right. You know, the hurricane guys, they keep, you know, somebody made an argument, why would somebody in Colorado predict hurricanes in Florida?
Dr. Gray's a good guy, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you like him. I don't know if you ever listened to that or when he was saying global warming is not the cause of hurricanes, guys. I'm trying to tell you this right now. I figure it was the Halil thing he was talking about. Yep. He's like, it's not got to do with global warming. And the one thing I didn't impart to you is that my wife's boss had to go down and was at that actual conference.
Oh, okay.
And he talked to Gray about Al Gore's book. He said, it's a nice book. He goes, but it's not science.
No.
What a jerk. Gore. How can you listen to that piece of crap? He invented the Internet highway. Now he's like Mr. Green.
Yeah, he's not doing well. I guess I read something. I'm not sure it's accurate or not, but he's taking steps to shore up his
you heard that?
His house.
You heard that on 9/7?
And it got worse. It got worse. It got worse.
Yes.
So
I've actually taken up your bad habit of listening to Beck. And
sometimes it's good to listen to the place to know what the enemy knows. You know?
And also Limbaugh, who just got. Do you see that contract he just got?
No.
Oh, it's like $400 million until 2016. He is now paid more than like Couric, Brian Williams, and whatever.
Well, good for him.
Combined.
Yeah.
So you know that there's a point to this.
Well, the point is that he's as I said before, he's a mouthpiece for industry, and
he's a shill. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah.
And I've had a ball listening to him, especially when. All right, well, now let's go to this: Hillary and Obama.
Okay.
I'm thinking that something's going to happen to shoot down Obama, and Hillary's going to wind up in the catbird seat.
I don't think so. I think this is.
I
think she's even within the party is alienated somebody. She deserves to get beat.
Yeah, but the thing is, they bring her along. We said time and again. I mean, they reinvent her. Did she actually screw something up, or is I don't know how to read this. I
can read it very easily.
That's why I've come to you.
Yeah.
Oh, sage.
I can read it very easily. I look at the demographics of the United States, and there are people that are voting for Obama for only one reason, and they don't give a crap about any politics or anything else.
Let's just call it what it is. They'll go black before they'll go female.
Oh, absolutely.
Black male over white female.
Yeah.
Well, that's not new, is it?
Absolutely. And what's interesting to take that out another stretch is the amount of people, particularly females that I've talked to, that are so besides themselves because Hillary isn't going to make it. They're switching to John McCain. And I said, okay, so what kind of a Democrat are you? Because regardless of, if we play the politics game, there's no logical reason why a diehard Democrat would suddenly vote for a Republican. But I know what the answer is. It's racism and sexism. So there are women voting for Hillary simply because she's a woman. And if we can't have,
a woman will go for a white guy.
They would go for, and none of that tells me, it's probably not politically correct, but that might be a good reason why women should have never been given the right to vote. Because if they're employing that kind of logic, those are people that are controlling the future and destiny of your country.
Go to eparsonline and send your emails to Harry Spenser.
No, you asked.
Don't send them to me. I'm not passing them on.
No, I'm tongue-in-cheek on that. But the point is that there are a lot of people that should not be casting ballots, if that's the logic that they employ. But then again, it probably, it does make any difference, so...
Nothing I want to ask you about.
You can edit that out, right?
No,
I said
no, I don't want to. That's precious. I'm going to leave that in. Like I said, I'll also put your website up and your emailing.
Okay.
What was I going to go with this? Oh, okay. The deal with HARP and all this stuff too. We've gone back and forth about this. You've been pretty much the voice of reason, and I would have to say you've been right. But still things continue, and you wonder how much weather manipulation might be going on. And like I said, you and I have gone back on this, and you slapped me down a couple, many times through the last years. But, in the end, do we think that there is something happening?
Oh, I think so. But but again, I think,
Jimmy Thomas aside.
Yeah, I think that you can look at things, and this is the worst thing. And then I remember I don't remember it, but then there was the Dust Bowl in the 1930s, and nobody was manipulating that. Things happen, and and they're not always good. I mean, the worst thing that could possibly happen in the peak of the Depression was to have the weather conditions they had out west and in the Midwest.
So now we were actually, ironically, looking at the reverse of what was happening. Let's say we're in a recession right now. We're in a problem, and now we have all this flooding. But back in the Depression, they had no rain at all.
They had no rain at all.
It's almost like a flip-flop.
Yeah. And, the science wasn't there. I mean, certainly the science is farther along today to do things that we probably shouldn't be doing. But the reality is the science wasn't there then, and that stuff was going on,
So stuff happens.
Yeah. My buddy, Kurt Vonnegut's, brother was the guy who invented the dropping silver iodide into clouds to seed clouds,
I got to share something with you.
Okay.
Some Swedes sent me something that came from a video of a show over in the UK.
Okay.
Called Gears something. I forget what it is. And they said, just take a look at this because it's so funny because they're talking about something that they don't know what they're talking about. And here's what they were saying. They were making fun of the Germans. Okay, this is a Brit show making fun of the Germans because at the Mercedes-Benz plant somewhere in Germany, they have these vast acreages of parking lots where they were having their new cars come out to, and they didn't want to cover them all. So what they did was they invested in planes spraying chemicals over the plant so it wouldn't rain. So
there you go.
There's no chemtrails. Anyway, you can't make this stuff up. But I thought you'd get a hoot about that. I guess I didn't send that along to you, but they were just saying this is kind of funny because they don't know what they're talking about, and they're laughing, going, "Oh yeah, they're spraying stuff over there, so that nothing will fall on the." Because they didn't want any hail coming on them or anything like that, and they didn't want to canopy all this acreage of new cars and parking lots. So anyway, that's
Stuttgart.
You think?
That's where I think the Mercedes-Benz plant is at.
I'm sure there's more than one,
but that I think is their world car. I think if you look inside the door, it says Stuttgart.
The main center.
Yeah.
All right. Not that we care too much about who's president because we don't care what Pharaoh sits in the Oval Office. But can you make any heads or tails about what we're going to get out of any of this?
Too close to call. I think that if it's John McCain's election to lose.
So in other words, don't screw it up?
Yeah. I think the best thing he can do is distance himself from the current president as much as possible. There was a couple of interesting things. Pull the politics out of it and pull the individuals as much out of it. And somebody sent me an A-B comparison of Barack's bride and John McCain's bride. And you don't hear much about Mrs. McCain.
No, you don't.
But her private life is a lot more
interesting.
Actually, a lot more honorable, I guess, would be a change of words. And in other words, it isn't for election. This is stuff she's been doing for 25 years. She has a track record of.
So she didn't just do it just because her husband's now.
Yeah. and there's a tendency to like her a whole lot better than
Michelle the Mouth.
Yeah.
Why? Oh my God.
Then they have this. Who's this twit that NBC keeps parading out? This retired general or whatever.
Oh yeah, I know.
Who made the comment that just because McCain spent 5.5 years in a POW camp doesn't qualify to be president? Well, I don't think anybody ever said that. But why would he say that? So there's two things you can look at. One is he's supposed to be on Obama's side. So,
you mean Wesley Clark?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
So basically, now he's got Obama coming out doing damage control because that isn't the kind of thing you want to project while you're running. Is he a plant working for Obama? Obama thinks you're out helping me. In fact, he's, kneecapping him. And that was the situation in the Hillary Clinton thing, was that she had people popping off saying stuff that,
Not good.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting, and that doesn't mean that McCain doesn't have similar problems, but the difference probably with McCain politically is that he has a track record, and so if you have to, and my old saying about voting for the lesser of two evils is still evil. When you had McCain, Clinton, and Obama, my decision process then has to go to the lowest common factor. And I say to myself, do I want to vote for two lawyers or a 23-year retired Navy man? And I'm not saying that but I have my choice between a Navy guy and two attorneys.
Well, anybody and a lawyer.
Yeah. So the last thing you want to do, guys, is to hire more lawyers to, bastardize
I wasn't a lawyer, but my wife was.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting. But I'm amazed at the amount of people I've talked to, and some very close in my family, that told me that if it got between Obama and Hillary Clinton, they would vote for Hillary Clinton. And I said, why would you vote for Hillary? Because you already, the stuff I hear people rolling out of their mouth makes absolutely no sense.
Well, no matter what happens, I think this is inevitable. You tell me what you think. What about an incursion into Iran? I say it's imminent.
You keep saying that. I keep saying it isn't. And we've had this discussion a year ago. And guess what? We're no farther along right now.
What are we doing?
We did one of these for the 12 back. You were for another. Okay.
I'm saying it's going to happen in 2009. They won't do anything with a lame duck president. But they've got to do it because we're on the road to catastrophe. But on the bright side,
I think there's something to be said for the fact that when you looked at the ambassador from Iran yesterday in the newspaper with blue eyes,
like yourself,
I'm telling you, everything gets down to a common factor, and they've been working the diplomatic channels, and this whole thing got out of control with the Shah of Iran, and.
But we put him in.
I know. Well, what I'm saying is that sometimes I don't think that Iran ever wanted to be an enemy of the United States.
Agreed.
And I think that there are diplomatic things underway to try to turn that back a little bit.
But now that I think back, and we understand what we do now, and I didn't back then. But I have to wonder why. After there was so many machinations to install the Shah once and the Shah a second time, and he got thrown out. So, and I think the global lords know all. Yeah. And yet I'm wondering about that. I can make excuses like, well, the Shah the second time around got a little too antsy, so it's like, get your ass out, we'll put the Ayatollah in. Yeah. And then, of course, it was reported that he made a deal with Bush and Reagan because he knew that, they were coming into office. So, we all know they know the handshake, but in that situation, it is interesting. But, even now, when I listen to Ahmadinejad, look, he's revving up his people. He knows he's not going to get a scratch on himself. Yeah. But he's getting everybody all fired up about this as well.
This is the way I look at things. I watch Iranian television via satellite. And of course, everything's in Farsi, so I don't really get what they're talking about.
You're only there for the visuals.
Yeah, but the visuals are advertisements for ever-ready batteries.
That's right.
I know. I'm thinking, how real is this?
You fight with people you trade with.
And I'm watching, they run movies, they run soap operas, people look pretty normal, they look pretty intent, they don't look like, attack from the United States is imminent. And, and they're running ads for Eveready. The Eveready bunnies bopping along with Farsi on the bottom of the screen. They're selling batteries made in the United States. And so I'm, again, there's more to this story, but I think the United States actually, a lot of people, it probably needs Iran more than a lot of people think in that area. And the Iran-Iraq thing going on, but the United States armed Iran. They're flying F-14 fighter jets that were built in St. Louis, Missouri, or someplace. The Grumman, I think, made them, so maybe not St. Louis, but...
Okay, so you don't think that it's a done deal?
No. And there are so much infrastructure problems going on right now in Israel. The U.S. military, I mean, we know the story right now, especially with the economy. It's not going to happen in 2 years or 3 years, and it may never happen.
All right. You heard the prediction for Harry Spenser about this, but
That's
I will
right.
say that was going to happen no later than 2000.
Well, I had an opportunity, I don't know if we talked last time, I had an opportunity to listen to the former UN ambassador, former mayor of Atlanta.
Andrew Young?
Andrew Young. And shook his hand and talked to him. It was actually very interesting. And he had, of course, everybody's looking backwards now, but he had a lot to talk about. And Iran was one of the subjects.
Wait, was Young up here?
Yeah.
And you get to talk to him when he was... Oh, that's right, I forgot.
Yep,
Okay,
yep.
Great.
And,
so
people have their opinion of Andrew Young. And my wife was there, and I said, so what'd you think? And she said, what a fine gentleman. Very, very polite, very nice, and he talked a little bit about working in the Carter administration and about Iran. And he said one of the things people don't know, and you talk about the hand that controls stuff, unseen hand, he said that the Carter administration had brokered a deal to release those hostages before the elections and before the whole 9 yards. And a group of people, unauthorized, met in Paris from the United States and basically queered that entire deal and set it up so that if Ronald Reagan won the election, that it would look like.
And of course, that's what happened.
And it's exactly.
But would one of those people have been,
he didn't say.
No, he wouldn't, of course.
He wouldn't, but he said.
Hank Kissinger?
Yeah, it could have been, But, he made a lot of interesting observations, and one of them, he said that this country really, wants to extricate itself out of the messes that we have managed to create in the last 35 or 40 years. One of them is, he said, you got to talk to people. And he said, we have a policy that we don't talk to Iran, we don't talk to China, we don't talk to North Korea, we don't talk to anybody, because we don't talk to people. And he said, you'll be amazed over the history of mankind how many times you can talk to your enemy and make your enemy your friend. And he said, we have ignored Africa. And he said he wasn't saying that because of black man. He said, this is the largest continent on the planet. They have resources that are unbelievable, natural resources, minerals, gas, oil, and they're begging for people to come in and help them.
But that's the reason why nobody does, because they're being hung out to dry.
Exactly, and he knows that.
Yes.
He said the United States is never going to be able to compete with China. He said the realistic, you can't compete with a country that's got 1.5 billion more people than you do and that sort of thing. He said, but there are so many things the United States could do and set the ship right. And he said Africa is one of those places. And but basically the United States needs to start doing things based on the right decision, what's the right thing to do, and not necessarily the political, But he did an ABC, didn't go through all the ABCs, but one of the things he said was that E stood for England, and he said all money flows through London.
Would that be the city of London?
Yeah. But all money. He said, I don't care where that cash comes from, all money flows through London.
Now, did he say that to you in a private conversation?
He said that in the presentation, and I'll dig up the recording of it for you at some time.
You were there.
I sat there and listened to it. I think A stood for Africa, B but when he went to E or England or G for Great Britain, he said the reason why they're the power that they are is because all money flows through London.
Now, did you look around? I mean, was Jack there or anybody?
I don't know if he was there or not, come to think about it.
But you and I catch that.
Yeah.
I mean, we understand that.
Yeah.
And he said that.
He said that. And he said people don't understand. In other words,
and they're right,
he understood the world. He said dealing with people around the world. And that was one of the key things that, every penny that flows in this planet flows through London.
Yep. Oh, my goodness.
That
is excellent.
And he knew it. And you're talking to a guy that's, down in his 80s. I didn't realize how old, this guy's an old man.
Young's in his 80s?
Yeah, he's, in the 70s, or he's born in the 30s. Grew up in the 30s.
All right.
I said, I remember him as a young guy, no pun intended. Yeah. No. And I looked at Gloria, I said, man, that guy's old. She goes, well, John, he said he was working for Carter. Carter hasn't been in office in 35 or 40 years.
I know, but we always had that view of him, yeah. Right.
But what a wonderful guy to talk to off the line, very polite, humble. Somebody asked him, what do you think Jimmy Carter thinks about people, looking back on him? He said, I'll tell you right now. He said, Jimmy Carter doesn't give a damn what people think about him. And they said, well, what do you think? What is he doing right now? And he said, he's like me. He said, he's getting ready to meet his maker. He said, because none of us, he said, and Carter's in his 70s. He said,
Carter's in his 80s.
80s, right, yeah. And he said, so he's like me, he's getting ready to meet his maker. And he ended the whole presentation with a prayer and a little poem and everything. Had people crying and what, but that comment about London and...
that's huge.
Yeah.
That's a wicked...
But you're right. He said, basically, we have turned our back on Africa and the people that live there. And he said that, by going into Africa... this country could revive itself economically. He said we can't send enough people in there. We don't have and yet he said that all pours right back into the United States, and we're not doing it.
Well, I find it very interesting that in South America, in Sub-Saharan Africa, and you could even say in Southeast Asia, they have a treasure trove beneath their soil, and none of those areas have been allowed to develop. And if anything, they've been. And even Mugabe and the rest of those clowns that are in there, they're all guys who know the handshake.
He says that in Western Africa, contrary to what you hear in the news and whatnot, he said the oil reserves are massive. And he said there's
diamonds and gold,
and they're just looking for a little help.
And it was never given to them, and it was never meant to be given to them.
Let
me, don't you find it interesting, too, if you look back, as you and I are cohorts, in the same age group, and that is Andrew Young and Julian Bond. I would have thought would have been the ones who would be the first ones to crack the white ceiling in politics. It didn't happen. To me, they are heads and shoulders. Statesmen over Obama.
Oh yeah. As soon as this guy started talking, I'd see him on the news, but when you're sitting there 25 feet away from him, and so this guy, and you could tell he was getting old because he would say something and then stop like he was losing his train of thought, and I knew what he was going to say, or he'd almost want to help him say it, but then he would pick up and continue. He didn't forget where he was at. He just had to think about it for a second.
And why was he here? What was the occasion?
He was just the university has brought, which I think is great, has brought a lecture series of people in now for students to meet and greet.
Right.
And one particular individual that works here should remain nameless.
Would I know this individual?
Yeah, met him at the University of South Florida about 30 years ago, and it was Andrew Young and a civil rights leader from Tampa, and this individual was in the middle in a photo op, and he said, I know what I'm getting set up to be the Oreo cookie. And he was there that night and reminded Andrew. Andrew actually said,
you remember
yeah. He was getting me set up as the cream between the two, so...
All right.
But it was a good presentation. It was a real for younger students. It was a real eye opener.
Yeah.
And getting back to the last thing he mentioned was the fact that Carter, when he was the ambassador to the UN, he said, "Well, what do you want me to do?" He said, "I want you to go to these countries that are politically and not in tune with the United States, or they don't, they have problems dealing with the United States, and ask them, what can we do for them? He said, and you don't hear that, anymore. He said, so.
He said that from Carter?
Yeah, Carter said, you go to countries in Africa, or go to countries in third world nations, and instead of dictating to them, ask them, what can we do,
Which was nothing, and then again, you got to remember that Carter was a Trilateral Commission charter member, obviously groomed.
Oh, yeah.
By Rockefeller and Brzezinski.
Oh, yeah.
So when Young makes that makes that statement, Jimmy Carter didn't care what anybody thinks about him, except for the fact that he might have been sired by Joe Kennedy.
Well, that could be. Yeah.
That's for another time.
That's another time.
All right, listen, we're going to have to bring this to a close. I'm sorry to say that, but I hope you'll come back again. Again, we've been with Harry Spenser. He founded this show. We were co-hosts for quite some time, and he does come back to visit with us, and we're happy that he does so. And I appreciate you kicking off this Knollapalooza.
Okay. Well, we'll do it again.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Adios.